Okay, so you'll get a chance to ask me questions tonight, but I suppose the question I've got is, it's only 21 shopping days till Christmas, so what are you doing here? Why aren't you out shopping? It's sort of, why aren't you out there having a good time and doing all that sort of stuff? So I think we'll uncover the reason for that as we go through everything. So just want to make sure everybody can hear me, because the acoustics are not very good in this room. So if you have trouble hearing me or anything, just put your hand up or something, and I'll make sure I speak more loudly. And this makes a horrible noise when I do this. Yeah, that's a horrible noise. Yeah, okay. Good, okay. I won't do it again. Okay, so we're here to meditate, and I suppose we'll actually, you know what we're really here for? We're really here to have fun. We're really here to have fun. I mean, what's fun but the type of happiness, I suppose, isn't it really? And I hope you haven't come here to have a miserable experience or to suffer unduly. If you have, well, okay, yeah, we'll try to fulfill that need, I suppose. But for the rest of us, I think we're here to have fun, to have an enjoyable experience. And I congratulate you, and quite seriously, I do congratulate you. The rest of the world is going, ape, going crazy, and Chadstone must be humming, and Southland must be humming, and all the online shopping, everyone's clicking, buying bargains on Black Friday. Maybe it's Black Monday today. I don't know, but it's something's black out there. And then here you are. You're sitting on the floor, doing nothing, except trying to find a bit of happiness inside, as opposed to external things. So I suppose I really, congratulate you on taking that step, because it is really quite a revolutionary sort of step. There's so much pressure on us out there to do the opposite, which is to look for satisfaction and to look for happiness and to look for those inner hungers to be satiated, and not only to be satiated temporarily, but to be satiated completely, fully, so you never have to experience any want or need again. And unfortunately, when we go out there in the world, and that is one of the qualities of our experience, that it's insatiable. But by seeking happiness in these external experiences, they are insatiable. You have one, then you have to have second, and then even second isn't good enough. You have to have third, and then suddenly at the end of your life, you're up to 3,458th. And what you want 3,459th, because the 3,458th still didn't satisfy you. So that's sort of that's one of the qualities of what we call samsara, the dissatisfactory nature of samsara. Samsara is the wheel of life, in which we're trapped, we're bound by karma and delusions to this body, to this mind, to these views we have. And one of the qualities of that sense of entrapment and the dissatisfaction is that the experiences we seek that are motivated by corrupt views and corrupt internal tendencies, which we can call karma, corrupt internal tendencies and corrupt views. Anything we sort of strive and achieve and want, with that power but it is bound to land us in some sort of suffering, some sort of dissatisfaction. And that dissatisfactory nature has many sort of qualities. One of them is the insatiability, that we are never satisfied with what we have. Never. Those beings who are satisfied, and I've met many spiritual practitioners who have a sense of satisfaction, they radiate a sense of peace and tranquility and calmness and openness, because they're open to other living beings, they're open to other people. Whereas somebody who's starving, hungry and wanting more because they can never be fulfilled, that person's like a hungry sort of animal, and you can never relax around them, because they're always wanting more, and you can never wonder if they're being truthful, because you never know how they're going to, whether they're going to use you, take advantage of you, or be truthful or lie. So whereas people have that intense sense of satisfaction, if you feel comfortable and safe around them. And luckily, like our teacher here, Geshe Doga, he's one of those. One of my other teachers is the Dalai Lama, he's one of those. Many other teachers. But it's a gradation thing. I think in life, as you go along, you develop satisfaction because you're forced to. Because you know that some of those dreams and ideals and wants and fantasies you had in youth, they're just not going to happen anymore. So what you've got is what you're going to have, and really it's up to you, up to each of us to make that, I suppose, that internal declaration of satisfaction. So we can't be satisfied by striving after external things, and also external things as a cause of happiness. They're very uncertain. They're very, very uncertain. I mean, you might go out and think, oh, I'm going to take my friend out, really impress him or her, and take him or her to a great restaurant, have a great meal. It's going to be fantastic, and then something goes wrong in the restaurant. You ordered the wrong stuff, or it's too hot or too cold, or the waiter's grumpy, or the people in the next table are loud, and a couple of bogans, a truckload of bogans come in next door, and suddenly your night that you've planned and you've sort of really spent money on it falls apart a bit, and then you end up having an argument with the person you're with or something, and it becomes an unpleasant experience. So I suppose that's the nature of our existence here. If we rely on external things, it's also uncertain. It's uncertain. Things are uncertain. It's uncertain. I mean, your body's uncertain. You don't know whether you're going to wake up in the morning, but if you do wake up in the morning, you don't know whether you're going to be tired, whether you're going to have slept well, whether you'll have aches and pains in different parts of the body or something, or you don't know what's going to happen. So we're a very victim of that uncertainty. So those two qualities of existence, cyclic existence we call it, the insatiability nature and the uncertain nature, they sort of like continue to torture us because they never let us stop. They never let us stop. They never let us have satisfaction and stillness and a sense of, that's enough. I don't need to do any more. Okay, so in meditation, what are we trying to do? In meditation, we're looking for internal causes of happiness as opposed to the external. So we can then look at what are those internal causes of happiness, and contradistinction to that, the internal causes of like internal disharmony or disgruntlement or agonizing pain. I mean, like an internal cause of agonizing pain, like severe depression, severe mental illness, severe suffering, internal pain. It can be from that extreme to just being a little bit unhappy with something. So that internal causes, we have to then decide in our own experience, and I'm not going to tell you what to do or what to believe. I think this is a process of self-discovery. You have to, in your own way, in your own mind, find out whether these things are true or not, and don't believe what anyone says until you've proved it. But I suppose we can contrast the power of the internal causes versus the power of the external causes in determining whether we're happy or not. So we're determining whether we're happy. So which is more powerful, the internal causes or the external causes? And I suppose we can look around and we find examples of people who have extreme external causes of happiness, extreme, like actually unbelievable causes of happiness. They're wealthy, they're attractive, they have everything, the beautiful partner, the beautiful family, the beautiful job, the beautiful money, the beautiful body, everything what they have public acclaim and everything, but inside, they're really quite tortured. And I mean, I don't read a lot of, what are those magazines? New Idea or other people, so I don't read them, but sometimes they're left on the table at lunchtime, and you see all these beautiful parade of beautiful movie stars, and you think, wow, they must be so happy. And then you find out They've got drug and alcohol problems, they're divorced, they're estranged, they've lost all their money, they gamble, they're in rehab, they're having some horrible surgery to make them look better or feel better about themselves. So you think it's really torturous. So I suppose our basic premise in Buddhist philosophy, and as we undertake this exploration of reality, is what is the reality? Is the internal causes of the mind, the internal causes of happiness and sadness, do they override the external? And I think by an example of somebody who's extremely unhappy, like today I was watching a movie with Heath Ledger in it, and he died. He's a beautiful, beautiful man. I got to meet him once. I got to meet Heath Ledger before he died. So I was with the Dalai Lama, and we got to meet Heath Ledger. We took a photo of him, and then with the Dalai Lama. So that was very lucky. That was very beautiful, because he died not long after that. So for my particular sort of think, I think, wow, how wonderful, we got to meet the Dalai Lama before he died, and he died of various concoction of prescription and non-prescription drugs in a hotel room alone. And he's a beautiful man, beautiful actor. And he was playing Robin Hood, I think, in a movie I was watching today. I don't know, but anyhow, so something like that. Very, very sad, very tragic. But I think those sort of things show that the internal causes can completely override, completely. And I think this is really important to emphasise. They can completely override what's happening. So if you're particularly unhappy, if you're particularly depressed, and feeling incredibly, sorry for yourself, then everything out there is dark and black and painful, and there is no happiness out there at all. And the people who you contact they're all, well, if it can even go to the extent with the people you contact you think are evil or dangerous, and you become sort of paranoid and that. So that mind of intense unhappiness, that intense introspection that goes too far in, can completely actually change your perception, and suddenly everything becomes a threat, and just a tragedy, just such a tragedy. Now then, if we completely change that attitude and really look at other people in a different way and look at the environment in a different way, then it becomes precious. Everybody becomes precious. Every experience we have is precious. Every living being becomes a source of delight. So that's really tricky. That's really tricky. But imagine if every living being you saw created delight just from merely apprehending them. And that's one of the meditations we do, where we actually meditate on an equal feeling to every living being, and then develop a delightful love, which is an apprehending consciousness that actually apprehends beings as delightful. And then people say, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. There are right bastards out there who are trying to get you. And of course there are right bastards out there trying to get you. There are people who are trying to take. And it's just maybe we can then apprehend, well, if you had a child who was mentally ill, psychotic, and they were angry at you, and they were harming you, and they were stealing from you, or a child, I've had many people who've looked after who've had children who've been drug addicted and have stolen from their parents, have stolen from their siblings, and destroyed families. But still there's a degree of compassion and tolerance for them, even because of their intolerable, harmful behaviour, and that's because of a sense of love, really, a sense of love and compassion. So as we go down this path of looking at the internal causes for happiness, then love and compassion are number 1 and 2. Or they're equal, actually, equal. They're just different aspects of the same mind. So if we have a mind of love and compassion, then the mind is a generous, open mind. Now, it's very hard to get that when the mind is very chaotic. So, you've all got here today, you've raced here, God knows where you've come from and what you've had to deal with today, but by some freak of karmic coincidence, you're here. Congratulations, you've overcome a lot of obstacles. Your mind will be cluttered, and your mind will have lots of thoughts, so it's impossible to develop any sort of these really sophisticated states of mind when the mind's in chaos. So we start with simple meditation. And one barrier to meditation is this. this, that, okay. And this is not an ad for iPhones, by the way. This means, so whenever you meditate, you must turn it to silent, like now. So any of you who've got them in your pockets and haven't turned it on to silent, please, I beg you to turn it to silent. Because I really think these things actually are a great sense of mental distraction and problems. They're very useful, of course. So now we're going to meditate. How do you meditate? You can sit in any position you want. You can lie down on the floor if you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you lie down on the floor, you're liable to fall asleep. So if anyone falls asleep, the person next door has the permission to poke them and then to wake them up. Now, most of us think sitting down on the floor is necessary. Well, it's not necessary. It's just because a lot of these countries didn't have chairs and monasteries were so poor they didn't have chairs. I bet if they had money they would have had chairs, but they didn't. They just had cushions. So you sit on the floor. Now you can sit in. The thing people mostly focus about is the position of your legs. It's not that crucial. Most important is to be comfortable and to have your back straight, like in school. The teacher would slap you or smack you if your back was slumping. So you have your back straight. Now we're going to do a very simple meditation. It's going to be a meditation on the breath. And why do we do this? Is because it stabilises the mind. We'll do this for about 10 or so minutes. Very, very simple. And the really wonderful thing about the breath is you don't need any props. You don't need like a metronome that's going there. You don't need a candle. You don't need to buy a CD or burn incense or anything. You've got your breath with you till you die. So just breathe in and out through the nostrils. Different people explain it in different ways. Some people say focus on the air going in and out the nostrils. Some people say focus on the stomach going in and out. Because when you're doing this sort of meditation, you tend not to breathe through your chest. You tend to sort of breathe slowly and deeply through your diaphragm. You don't have to control your breathing, though. We're not trying to control that breathing. And then there's what we call the 7-point Virachana posture, which I won't go into. But just today we'll just say hands in your lap, feet sort of flat on the floor. If you try to be comfortable. If you want to stretch your legs now before we start, then go ahead and do it. And then for the next 10 minutes, we're just going to meditate on the breath going in and out of the nostrils. If you find it helps, you can count your breaths. So you can go, sort of in and out is 1, in and out is 2, in and out is 3. And you can get up to like 7, then start at 1 again. Then when you're comfortable with that, go up to maybe like 21 or something. And then when you're comfortable with that, then you can go to 100, maybe 108 or something, and then you can, so slowly. But for a lot of us, it'll be a challenge to get up to 2. So don't worry. If you're only up to 2 by the end of the next 10 minutes, you're a success. There is no failure in this. The only failure is to give up. So that's it. Never give up. Never give up. Okay, so we're going to meditate now, simple breathing meditation, just to stabilise the mind, to calm the mind down. This is your holiday from the conceptual thoughts. This is a real holiday. In about 5 minutes, I'll bring your mind back to the object, and then maybe a little bit after that, I'll bring it back. So depending how we're going for time. So it'll only be about 10, maybe 12 minutes or so. So just make sure your posture is comfortable. Now place your mind on the breathing. Try not to let the mind exit your body, and try to not let the mind exit the room. Bring the mind back to the body at all times and just meditate on the breath. So if your mind has wandered away, just bring it back. Bring it back onto the breath. Just hold your concentration on the breath. Breathe in and out of the nostrils. Hold that object only. Okay, we'll just finish the meditation now. So you just quietly relax your concentration, and you can move your body around and wriggle and things like that. Just try to do it quietly, that's all. Okay. So, sorry, I should have said the sort of structure of these sort of classes that, well, it works for me. I don't know if it works for you, but it works for me. Is to do a little bit of introduction like this, to do some meditation to relax, and then people calm down a bit, and then we can have a little bit of talk about an aspect of Buddhist philosophy. And then we meditate on that, but with a different sort of meditation, an analytical meditation, as opposed to a stabilizing meditation. So stabilizing meditation, where you just have one object. An analytical meditation is where you maybe analyze to come to a conclusion. And that conclusion will hopefully be something useful that you can integrate into your life. So the topic sort of, which was advertised, and that was to understand emptiness. Emptiness is a very, very profound and deep subject, and so obviously we can't go into it to a great depth, but I think for many of you, you've probably heard the term and maybe a bit, what does it mean? Is it, it sounds weird, talking about emptiness or nothingness or selflessness, they're all the words we use. And it can be a very confusing subject and can lead to tremendous problems if it's misinterpreted. It can lead to a credible sense of like an existential sort of crisis and meaninglessness, like an absolute nothingness. And that can be a tragedy because you can easily fall into that. So one way to avoid that is by understanding emptiness via understanding dependent arising. And I'll try to explain what I mean by dependent arising. But basically dependent arising means things arise in dependence. Things arise in dependence. That's what dependent arising means. It means nothing is independent. Nothing is independent. Everything is dependent. So that means every happiness we have, every sadness we have, every bit of good luck we have is dependent. Every bit of bad luck we have is dependent. Every good decision we've made in our life is dependent. And every one of those ripper bad decisions that we still regret and lose sleep about, dependent. So it gives us some hope. Things aren't causeless. So we don't believe in causelessness. So we don't believe in like luck, I suppose. Chance. Which is an interesting discussion, okay. So the text which I've studied most on dependent arising is a text by the famous Tibetan master, Lama Tsongkhapa. He's the middle statue there, the slightly bigger one in gold, with his hands like that. That's Lama Tsongkhapa. He lived in the 16th century in Tibet. He was one of the great reformationists who reformed Buddhist philosophy. And he wrote a text called The Praise to the Buddha for Teaching Dependent Origination. The Praise to the Buddha for Teaching Dependent Origination. It's just abbreviated to the Praise to Dependent Arising. Tendril Tupa. Praise to Dependent Arising. So I'm going to just read it. There's quite a few verses to it, so I'm not going to. I'll just read a few. For auspiciousness, we start at the beginning with the praise. The first line is, he says, "I praise to my Lama Manjughosha." So what he does is he actually praises to his guru. Lama is a Tibetan word for meaning guru, and his guru he saw as inseparable from Manjushri, which is the synthesis of all the Buddha's wisdom. So his guru he regarded as inseparable from the Buddha's wisdom, and that's one thing we have in Buddhism. We have the concept of a guru being inseparable from the Buddha. In his first verse then he says, "I bow down to the unsurpassable teacher whose supreme omniscience realized and then taught the conquering dependent arising." I'm going to read that again. "I bow down to the unsurpassable teacher whose supreme omniscience realized and then taught the conquering dependent arising." So he bows down after making homage to his teacher. He then makes bow down to the unsurpassable teacher who's the Buddha, who lived 2,600 years ago, thereabouts, whose supreme omniscience, he had an omniscient mind, he knew all phenomena. Omniscience is a bit different from omnipotence. I was brought up a Catholic, and God was omnipotent, and that creates problems. Once you say omnipotent, that means does everything, can control everything. Once you say they can control everything, then You got some big theological hurdles to overcome. Okay, but we don't say Buddha's omnipotent. We say the Buddha's omniscient, knows everything. One thing the Buddha can't do is he can't change your karma and destiny. That is yours. So not omnipotent in that sense. So he realized, and then he taught the all-conquering dependent arising. So he understood dependent arising, but then wasn't satisfied just with that. Then he taught it. So he taught it, and that was the all-conquering dependent arising. Because via dependent arising, we conquer or we destroy every problem, every false view, every cause of suffering for ourselves and for all other living beings. So that's the power of understanding dependent arising. That's why it's called the conquering one. So then we have to say, well, why bother? You know, why bother with this? You know, I just want to be happy. I just want to get a good job. I just want to get a good relationship. I want my body to work. I want to have enough money. Don't want to be sick. I don't want to have my cancer. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to have my mental illness. I've got so much stuff. What on earth are you talking about, all this rubbish? And then I just want to be happy. Okay, next verse answers that question. Okay, so the next verse is, whatever problems there are in the world, so everything we suffer from, every single thing you suffer from or have problems, have ignorance as their root. So the root cause of all suffering is ignorance, and it's a specific sort of ignorance. And we can talk about ignorance. So therefore you taught dependent arising, the seeing of which refutes ignorance. So ignorance is the root cause of all our problems. You know, generally we're so obsessed with, okay, you're the cause of my problem. You are it. Nothing wrong with me, it's you. And if only you would fix or change your attitude, change the way you behave with you, the world would be a happy place. And you're the cause of my happiness. Oh, you know, you're just it for me, you know. Don't ever leave me, you know. So, I mean, we go through life like that, and then, you know, changes, and suddenly, oh, actually, you're really nice. You're the cause of my happiness now. He's really, I'm off him now. And so we change, and life goes on for this. And okay, all those problems we have, you know, and you're a different colour from me. You're Asian. You're a Sudanese gang person who carnaps, and you're a Muslim terrorist, and you're something else. You're a redneck. You're a Republican. You're a Democrat. You're a Liberal. You're a Green. I don't know. You have labels and all this, and all these labels that we have, which we produce from our mind. Really, they actually come from our mind. They have as their root an ignorance. Now, what is this ignorance? And it's sort of important, because ignorance at one level means just to not know, but this ignorance that we have is an ignorance of the view of how we exist. This ignorance of how we exist. Now, at a very deep level, there is a sense of I. By the I mean, I don't mean my eyes, I mean the letter I, or with a dot on top, here, somewhere. So there's a sense of I. My name's Alan, so this is going to be Alan's I. And this Alan's I has been with me forever. It has a quality of being unchanging. That's the first quality. It's unchanging. And the second quality, it's independent of anything else. This sense of I have, which I hold on to with a voracious clinging. First of all, there's this appearance of I, and then this incredible clinging I have to it. It has been unchanging. It's been with me forever, and then it will continue forever. That's the first quality of this sense of I. And it is just that sense of I which appears to exist without depending upon anything else. This is really important. Some people call this inherent existence or true existence. They're hard terms to understand. An easier term to understand is that it is that quality of the I, or the person, or the me, that appears to exist without depending upon any other phenomena. That's from Arya Deva's 400 stanzas, a great, great Indian master. That is a summary of what the extent of inherent existence. So somewhere inside of us we have this very rock-hard concept, an unchanging concept of I, and this I is independent of anything else. Nothing else can change it, nothing else can interfere with it. It just exists from its own side without depending upon anything else. And this sense of I has existed, is existing, and will exist forever until we do something about it. The good thing about it is it's an ignorance. It's a wrong view, so therefore it can be countered. And then when it counters, when it encounters the contradictory truth, then it dissolves. There is nothing left. We can actually completely remove this ignorance that clings to this sense of I by understanding wisdom, by developing a wisdom. That wisdom is the wisdom that realizes the emptiness of this I. So that's where emptiness we get in this. So what are we being empty of is very, very important. We're being empty of a very just something. We've been very empty of this I, which appears to be unchanging, and then which appears to exist from its own side without depending upon anything else. But we're not trying to get rid of Alan per se. I mean, Alan's okay. Well, what is Alan? Alan's a man. He's used to be young. He's now old. He'll be dead soon, and there'll be a label on all those Alans. There'll be a young Alan. There'll be a middle-aged Alan. There's an older Alan, and then there'll be a dead Alan in a box somewhere. And that's all. Those labels are fine. Alan goes to work. Alan eats. Alan talks. Alan likes talking. If I keep talking, you won't have time for questions, and that's even better. Alan likes even that better. So, but there'll be time for questions. We're going to stop talking in a minute. And so, Alan has likes, Alan has dislikes. That's fine. Those labels are fine. We can exist as a phenomena that is labelled upon certain characteristics, and that is fine. That's reasonable. That's logical. But it's really this very deep sense of I, because what that deep sense of I then says there is I, and then it develops a sense of mine, or I possess. And then there is I, and then I possess my body, and then I possess my friend, and I have an enemy. I have somebody I don't care about, an indifferent, a stranger. So then to the person I like, then action and reaction occur. I develop attachment. I try to obtain. I try to protect. I get hurt when they don't respond. And when they leave, I get devastated. When the person that this I, my enemy, then does something harmful to me, immediately great anger occurs. And then maybe so much that I seek revenge or to harm, or I get harmed. And that creates negative, very negative karma. And for the person to whom I feel indifference to, I, my stranger, my stranger, I just ignore. I step over them in the street if they're asking for $1. If I watch the SBS news and they're dying on the screen in front of me, I just ignore it because they're strangers. So this sense of all these reactions and their neighbouring reactions, which is karma, when we're distilled down to this sense of I. The sense of I has two qualities. So when we're talking about dependent origination, it's an unchanging quality and it's a dependent quality. Now, an independent quality. So it's an unchanging quality and a quality of independence. What we're going to do now is a little meditation. So that is emptiness in a nutshell. I reckon that's really cool that we've nailed it in this session. But now we're going to do a little meditation. Now this meditation is going to be on this unchanging quality, which you believe in and which you hold on to. A little meditation. So we're going to do, it's like, we call it visual, no, it's not visual, it's just logical analysis. So there's you now. And don't think of yourself as like wearing a coat and a tie and this. I mean, there's meaning. This sense of I, this sense of I. It's a deep sense of I, who I am, at a very deep level. Okay, it's now, 8:44 p.m. Okay, we walked in the door at 8 p.m. So 44 minutes ago we walked in the door. This sense of I was the same sense of I that walked in the door. But look what's happened since then. I mean, maybe some transformations occur, but it's the same sense of I. It's the same sense of I that left home or work to come here. It's the same sense of I that got out of bed this morning. It's the same sense of I that got out of bed last week, last month, last year, a decade ago. So take 10 years off what you are now. That was the same I. crazy really. And then take off another 10 years, and another 10 years, another 10, till you become like a baby, till you're in the womb. And then, because we're Buddhists, we go even beyond the womb, because we believe that life is dependent origination from previous causes and conditions. So that same sense of I, even before conception, even before birth in this life, existed as an I. Now maybe I wasn't a man, maybe I was a woman, maybe I was an animal, maybe I was something else, I don't know. But still that same sense of I was there. So now it's your chance to meditate a little bit on this sense of I and this unchanging quality which you cling to, and we're going to try to usurp it. We're going to try to make it less rigid and think, wow, this I have hold so concretely. What is it now? Find it now, and then think, okay, you walked in that door, we all walked in that door. What was that I then? Well, that I had a whole lot of stuff going on, you know. What am I doing here? Weird Buddhist stuff, da-da-da. Who's these people? Where am I going to sit? Are people looking at me? Who's this I they're looking at? And am I self-conscious? And do I feel sad, happy, whatever? And then you left home. You probably dealt with stuff at home. The sense of I arose strongly about. You drove here. Maniacs on the road. The sense of I came up again. You got out of bed. 1 year, 10 years, another 10 years, 10 years. You're a baby, the sense of I, then you're in the womb, and then there's a sense of I even before that. So what we'll do is we'll just unpack, we'll cut our life into these little segments and try to understand, you try to recollect what this sense of I is at each of those moments, and just try to understand it, yeah. And then at the end of it, the conclusion is going to be that this holding on, this rigid view that this I has an independent nature of being unchanging, that rigid view will become a little less. And we'll say, wow, this I that I hold on to, this I that I defend with blood and sweat, it's not as solid as I thought. And it just opens up, becomes a little spacious. It's not emptiness per se, but it's a little bit to start. This is the way to start to understand emptiness. So, yeah. So just the people on the floor, just make your legs comfortable, and then we'll do it. So I'm going to just say this meditation is an analytical meditation. So your object changes. I'm going to lead it. About every minute, I'm going to say blah blah blah. Okay, find the I now. Then the next minute will be find the I as you walk through the door. Is it the same? You know, same. Then find the I as you left home today. Find the I as you got out of bed today. Find the I that you got out of bed, that got out of bed a year ago. Find the I that got out of bed 10 years ago, and so forth, until you get to a baby. And then that baby, who still has, even a baby has a sense of I. And then we don't have to go beyond this life. But if you wanted to, you could. That's cool. So, clear as mud? We're going to do it. So just, this is all fun. Remember, this is fun. But if someone feels a sense of fear, that's okay. Fear is impermanent. Fear is impermanent, and fear has no existence from its own side. Fear is just a label on an emotion. So it does not exist from its own side. Fear itself is a dependent arising. So if you feel fear, it doesn't matter. It's just dependent arising, and it is impermanent. Okay. So now we'll meditate on the I. This will only take about 7 or 8 minutes or so. First of all, just get comfortable. Okay, we're going to find the I. So find this I, this sense of I. You can say your name to yourself. So I'm Alan. I say this I, Alan. Where am I? And try to get an image or an understanding or a feeling of what you are now. Just now, at this moment. Okay, what is this I now? And just hold that. So now this sense of I, just think of what form this sense of I had as you walked in the door to the meditation room. As you walked through the door, what were your thoughts, feelings, this view of you? Who was that I that walked in the door? Now, who was the I that left home or left work to come here today and travelled here? Who was that I who undertook all those tasks to get here tonight? Who was that I? Where is that I? What is that I? Now the I that got out of bed this morning. What was that I that got out of bed this morning? What were the thoughts, feelings? What was the composition of that I that got out of bed? Now think a year ago from today, Alan or I got out of bed. I got out of bed. Who was that I then? What was that I? Where was that I? A year ago. Now quickly go back. Every 10 years there was an I. Go back in time. In each decade there was an I. Go back 60 years, 50 years, 40, 30, 20, 10. Go right back to when you were a little child. There is that sense of I. That label, Alan, or your name, was affixed on that, and it still sticks. So go back every decade, identify that I. until you're a little child. So now we come to the conclusion. We have clung to an unchanging view of this I, and yet when we look at the evidence, it is continually changing. This I, this me, has no essence of being permanent. It is a changing, evolving phenomena. So just use that understanding to counter the view that I am unchanging. In a way, it's the emptiness of the view that I am unchanging. Just rest in that space. Okay, you can just cease the meditation now. Just relax. Okay, there's time for questions if anyone has any sort of questions. If you don't, then we all go home. We'll have a cup of tea. There's a cup of tea up there, tea and biscuits. But otherwise, if you have questions, and people who have to leave, they can just go. I mean, it doesn't matter, don't have to stick around. But if has anyone got any questions or any insights they'd like to share, I mean, if you want to stand up and abuse me, then please go ahead. I don't mind. Yeah, cool. Hello? Yeah, hi. Good.
Just had a question about, this backtracking.
Yeah.
And that awareness or that cognising of the I
Yep.
at each point in time. So obviously the I changes, like it changes in terms of our wisdom and insight as we grow older, and so the way that we experience our own lives. But that actual cognising aspect that we use to interpret our life, is this emptiness saying that capacity of cognition itself is also not a constant factor?
Okay, so is that which cognises, or is that which, can I say a bit more broadly, is that which cognises, in this case yourself, or this I, is that not permanent, or is that unchanging?
Permanent, but like in its nature, like it just seems different, like this I, that the one that rises up, like when someone cuts
Yep.
off in traffic and it's like
Sure.
that seems a bit different to this one that can go back and
Sure. Okay.
10 years, in an introspective way, in an objective way, and
Sure.
shed light on that, and it seems a different aspect of mind.
Okay, so there seems to be two different aspects of the mind. One is there's can I say this, like the activity of the mind and the activity of our being, which is our wants, wishes, needs, and everything. And then at a deeper level, at a more central level, there's a sense of just I. There's a sense of I, and then there's a sense. Then there are all the activities of the mind and activities of this I, which we cognize, which are our thoughts, wants, needs, wishes, dreams. All that. So is that a bit? Is that where we're going? Is that where you're coming? Sorry.
Yeah, almost. It's almost like this power of observation that's able to observe as we go back.
Yeah.
That seems to have a certain validity that the grasping eye doesn't have.
Okay, so this power of observation that can observe the eye as we go back seems to have a sense of validity rather than the grasping eye. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so there are many different aspects to okay, so what do we compose? This sort of meditation is actually quite good because there actually is a deep concept of the I that doesn't really change. But obviously things do change. I mean, as a 60-year-old man, my thoughts are different from a 20-year-old man than a baby and stuff like that. My thoughts, wishes and needs and the way I cognise, the way I appreciate things. So that's obvious there. But at the same time, there is a deep sense of I, which has been with me forever. And that's at a deeper level. Now, the ability for consciousness to cognise, that is just the nature of cognition. Now, whatever has sentience, whatever has a mind, whatever has cognition, sort of knows objects. That is the nature of mind. The nature of mind is to know objects. So the definition of mind is what is clear and knowing. So therefore, that ability of clarity and knowing, and that ability to cognise objects here, that is like a permanent function of the mind. Yes, it will always do that because that is the nature of the mind. Then you could argue, well, then there's another discussion: is the mind itself existing from its own side? Does the mind itself, do those functions of the mind, that functionality of the mind, does that exist from its own side without depending upon anything else? And then when we come through this discussion, we'll even find that cognising ability of the mind, it lacks any inherent nature because it is merely dependent on others itself. So in that sense, we could say that the cognising aspect of the mind is itself a dependent origination, so has no existence from its own side without depending upon anything else. So, hi, someone down the back.
Like midbrain hypervigilance. So meditation's got to be heightening that sense of heightened, where's the threat coming from, even if we're just busy people.
Yes.
So this function has really got to be the bringing back into to the inner self. So it's awakening the external.
Okay.
Which is midbrain, like into the deeper sense of quietening things down. But detaching from feelings aren't facts.
So you're making the observation that meditation is like an internal hypervigilance. Is that what you're saying?
Letting go of when you initially you're saying let's quieten it all down.
Yeah, quite right.
Bringing it back to internal.
Yeah.
And then feelings that are arising from that, they're not facts, they're letting them go.
Yeah, sure. So the feelings so we bring in meditation we're bringing our attention internally. We're deliberately doing that. We're deliberately trying not to engage in external phenomena. We're trying to bring, and then we can. There are many ways we can deal with the emotions and things that arise in meditation. We may invoke them. For example, we might be trying to invoke love, and we might say, "Wow, I'm trying to invoke love," and then I will respond in a very dramatic, powerful way when I invoke love in my mind in meditation, and that's a valid way to do meditation. And then another meditation might be to have no conceptual thought at all, in which case we don't have any of these conceptual processes. We just have a single object, like on the breath. And then there are many other sorts of meditations which work on maybe the body, being aware of the body and aware of the mind and aware of feelings and aware of... So there are many different objects of meditation. I suppose that's a wonderful thing we've got in Buddhism. We've got this incredible toolkit of techniques we can really give, whatever your problem is, I bet we've got something that can deal with it, you know. I bet we have. I bet we've got something. It's like this huge, going to Bunnings and see those mechanics toolkits for sale at Christmas time, and think, wow, I bet there's something in there that can undo any sort of bolt. Well, I think the Buddhist toolkit's a bit like that, but even better. So, well, we've got something there. But then if we go, as said in that second verse from that text, if we go to the root cause, all our problems, whatever problems we've got, come from ignorance. And that ignorance is the way we misconstrue reality. So if we have the correct view of reality, if we understand how reality exists, then all those problems. So you don't need the big toolkit. You just need one really, really good spanner. You just need one to undo that nut, and then everything goes. So that's our view. That's what we believe in, and yeah, we're entitled to that view. But obviously, the world's very complex, and it's hard to conceive how that could be. But when we look at somebody like the Dalai Lama, when he talks to people, when he talks about, and he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, he's no fool, when he talks about the solutions like to world peace and the solutions to climate change and things, these worldwide problems that are so complex, he really talks about very simple terms, and they are to be kind, to be generous, to be understanding of people, to accept people, to not develop anger, to not develop jealousy, to not develop attachment, to not develop despondency, and then all the problems go away. So that's where we are. I mean, that's what we've got on offer, I suppose. That's our sales job. This is what we've got on offer, a solution to every problem in life. Bit of a bargain. You won't get that at Southland, you know. Okay, it's 10. Oh, sorry, one more question. Yes, hello.
So is emptiness the opposite of fullness? Is that a gradient or?
Okay. Is emptiness the opposite of fullness? But very good question. Yeah, the actual word tongpa nyi in Tibetan means empty. So you could say that this cup is empty. Like if I drink all the water, it's empty. So it's the opposite of fullness. Exactly what you said. So tongpa nyi in Tibetan is a state of being empty. It's really just, when we talk about emptiness, we're just be very careful of what we're being empty of, and we're being empty of this very hard and fast conceiving of oneself and external. And so me and you and you and you, I conceive of you to all exist as unchanging and to be independent of any other cause. And that view of things existing as unchanging and independent of anything else, that is what we want to get rid of. So we want to be empty of that appearance and then the grasping onto that appearance. Things appear to us to exist from their own side as unchanging and not depending upon anything else. Things appear to us to be unchanging and not depending upon anything else. Then we grasp at that appearance, and that grasping at the appearance is ignorance. When we have a wisdom that negates that, then that wisdom is the emptiness of that unchanging, independent self. So you're right. You're on the right track. Hang in there. Sort of getting temper. I'll sit here and talk for a little bit if anybody, and sit here and people won't come up and talk. But thank you for your patience. Thank you for not going shopping, and hopefully we'll see you again in the near future. Thank you.